and then turn around and lead others to do that. So it's just with great joy that I'm here. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to speak to a group of women. Today we're going to talk about 5 tools that unleash your leadership brilliance. Before we do that, I would like you to raise your hand if you think you're a leader. Okay, lots of hands going up. I'd like for you to raise your hand if you think you're brilliant. Not many hands going up, ladies.
Oh, brilliant.
So Terry stole my thunder about defining brilliance for you. But that's okay, because, and she used the same definition I'm going to use. It talks about your greatness. What I love is it's actually about excellence or distinction of you from others. And there are a couple of things that I systemically hear when I give talks. 1, I'm not a leader. 2, I'm not brilliant. Leadership is not about doing things at the expense of others. Leadership is not about minimizing, marginalizing, or in opposition to. Leadership is about influence. Anytime you influence somebody, what are you? You're a leader. Leader is about influence, and everybody in here influences somebody in their everyday life. Whether you're the leader of your household, whether you're the leader of your department, or whether you're just leading your particular position, you are a leader. The second thing I systemically hear is I'm not brilliant. Yes, you are. Anybody ever gone gem mining or been to a gold mine? Raise your hand if you've been to a gold mine. What's it like in there?
Dirty.
Kind of ugly, isn't it?
A lot of dirt.
What happens the moment somebody finds a vein gold or a gem? Woo! So I've struck it rich, haven't I? I've struck it rich. With your brilliance, it's the same way. The world teaches us about the dark ugliness of our cave and doesn't give us tools to find the vein of gold that will help us strike it rich. The book Terry referenced, What's Your Superpower, is about you finding your individual vein of gold. The one thing that is your brilliance that you uniquely do like no one else. Because when you find that, the empowerment, the peace, the knowing that you are in fact brilliant in this space will help you figure out how to live in that space. Because what happens when you when you pull a fish out of water? Right? So you keep the fish in water. What happens to us when we're not in our vein of gold, when we're not in our own brilliance? Oh, we can't breathe either, can we? So one of the things I actually have dedicated my life to is helping people find that vein of gold that allows them to strike it rich for themselves. And by richness, I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about authentic joy, abundance, and whatever that looks like for you. And it might be lots of money. It might simply be freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And then good health, right? To me, that is what richness is. Authentic joy, abundance, and good health. So today, we're going to talk about 5 tools that will help you tap into your leadership brilliance in what's your unique way to do that. We also have some books, What's Your Superpower books that are for sale that you can purchase if you want to find that vein of brilliance as well. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is this is your presentation, not mine. I'm here to empower you, give you the wisdom that you need. If there's anything that you need from me, stop, raise your hand, shout out my name, and we'll go from there. All right, let's see here. What do we have next? This is one of my favorite quotes about brilliance. Most of us use only a tiny percentage of our brilliance and power. It's as if we are each given our own jet airplane at birth. It can fly. It was made to fly. But we don't see it. We don't know what we have. So all we do is polish the wings or fire up the engines each morning for the sound effect, and then close the storage hangar for the rest of the day. What hidden capacities do we have within that if we tap into that vein of gold will shift everything about us and for us? That's what we're here to talk about today. What might we be able to do differently that will empower us and thus in turn empower others? Why don't more of us tap into the brilliance that we are? Complexity and chaos are the norm these days. Anybody here not living in complexity and chaos, raise your hand. Even if you don't seek out the drama. Okay, she says, is that a sling on your arm?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having the courage to raise your hand.
Well, not right now. I'm not dealing with drama too
Right.
much.
I was going to say, it seeks us out sometimes. Even if we are trying to eliminate drama, it seeks us out. It takes special tools to manage the complexity and chaos that we now find ourselves. Tools of the past aren't going to take us to the next place on the map. One of the biggest things that we're going to talk about this morning is that we've actually reached the outer limits of problem solving. How many people here find that their normal problem-solving skills don't seem to solve what's in front of them? Mm-hmm. Right? So as a leadership consultant, two of the things that I'm reading about right now is, one, problem-solving is not working. What that really means is, and no one's telling you this, is we've reached the sort of the outer edge of what our mind can do for us in the chaos and complexity. We're actually entering a realm of the open heart, where we actually have to be a heart-led society rather than a mind-led society. And you can imagine, no offense, my friend, men are not happy about that. Because who does that give the power to, just simply based on the way we're designed?
Men.
Women. Right?
Women.
So problem-solving skills are not where we need to be. The next, and I have these sheets because I can't actually see this with it bent down like that. So here's one of the things that we've done for years. It's called law of the instrument. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, which means we continue to solve problems with the exact same tool, even though complexity and chaos is making it impossible for us to solve it that way. Now, the law of the instrument goes way back. I want to share some details with you about it because it's pretty interesting. It was first seen in 1963 in an essay collection, Computer Simulation of Personality, Frontier of Psychological Theory. Now, I can just tell you I wouldn't have read that based on the article. Title, Computer Simulation. No, thank you. This fellow wrote, the tendency of jobs to be adapted to tools rather than adopting tools to the jobs. How many people here have to show up and change who they are to do their job rather than being allowed to do the job with the skills that they have or what they know? Most of us are forced to adapt. And so that showed up in 1963. We first knew this. Now, I also want to remind you, Buckminster Fuller said it took 50 years for society to catch up with societal institutions to catch up with what's really happening, right? So 1963, 56 years ago, we're finally starting to realize what they were talking about regarding the law of the instrument. In 1964, Abraham Kaplan said, I call it the law of the instrument, and it may be formulated as follows. Give a small boy a hammer, and he will find that everything he encounters needs pounding. How many times have you seen that? Later in 1964, Kaplan also said, we tend to formulate our problems in such a way as to make it seem that the solutions to those problems demand what we precisely already have in hand. Right? How many times have you gone, oh, I know how to solve that, and I'm going to solve it with only the 3 tools that I have because that's all I know how to solve it from, right? And then Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you've heard that, one of the great psychologists. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, first showed up in an article in 1966, The Psychology of Science. And he also wrote, I remember seeing an elaborate and complicated automatic washing machine for automobiles that did a beautiful job of washing them. But it could do only that. And everything else that got into its clutches was treated as if it were an automobile to be washed. I suppose it is tempting if the only tool you have is a hammer to treat everything as if it's a nail. So it's not like we've been doing this for a very short time. We've been doing this for a very long time. And then in 2003, in the book of Paradise and Power, historian Robert Kagan suggested a corollary to the law. When you don't have a hammer, you don't want anything to look like the nail. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to do something other than hammer. Part of the challenge is our leaders only know the hammer. And this is the hammer. Make more money. How many people are in an organization where the whip is, we gotta have more profit, we gotta make more money. Come on, people, what are you doing? Right? And the nails that they're hitting with that hammer are do more with less. How many people here are doing the jobs of 2, 3 people? Right? People over profit. Okay, I'm so tired of that one, because let me tell you, how did you get here? You rode on the backs of people. And when the money comes in, you don't just toss them overboard. I've seen that one a lot. It frustrates me. Corporate greed versus capitalism. I do believe that we have shifted from the constitution of this country and how we developed as a capitalist country to greed. There is an absolute different energetic vibration to greed than there is to capitalism, as opposed to entrepreneurialism. Say that 3 times real fast. That's why I love seeing all the entrepreneurs in here with their wares and their goods today. Right? This is what we need more of, because it's about you finding your unique place in the world rather than being a cog in a wheel of capitalism or greed. Not saying money's a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. Money's very important for the things for which it is important, but not at the expense of people. That's not a fair position. So here's our challenge. Without an effective leadership toolkit, you can't tap into your own brilliance or the brilliance of those around you. If all you have is a hammer, we're not going to go to the next place on the map that we need to go to. And we know we can't stay in the same place. Is there anybody who thinks doing the exact same thing of using the hammer is a good idea? Right? We have to do something different. So the solution is equip yourself with the tools necessary to bring out brilliance, your own brilliance, and the brilliance of those around you. Using a hammer on every challenge is not the place we need to be, or the place we need to go. So let's talk about our 5 tools. The first tool. Brilliance thinks in systems. Anybody here ever heard of systems thinking? Okay, Sharon and you need to be raising your hands. Who else raised their hands? Okay, awesome. Yeah, Karen, yeah, you better. Karen needs to be raising her hand. Karen works for me. She should have both hands up. One of the things that really changed my life was learning about systems thinking. And here's how I learned about systems thinking. And as Terry alluded to, one of my strengths is learner, and one of my top 5 values is wisdom. Which means if you charge $250 on a Saturday and a Sunday for a workshop and you're going to give a certificate for it, I'll show up because I love certificates, I love learning. And I had a law degree already, and I went to work for a company as their general counsel, and I'm watching these people and I'm thinking, is this leadership? Because if this is leadership, we're in trouble. And I'm one of those people who wants to know what it looks like. That's my favorite question to the world. What does that look like? So I went to get a PhD in leadership because I wanted to know what it looked like. And when I got the PhD, I realized what they were doing was not leadership. And we had to do something different. So I was with my dissertation committee, and I was presenting to them my dissertation, and it was legal-based. Some of you may remember in Kinston in the early 2000s when a pharmaceutical company blew up because of a dust explosion. And I'm fascinated by crisis management, and I wanted to interview the people who survived the dust explosion. It's called a phenomenological study, to see what happened to them in the wake of this crisis. And what happened is my dissertation committee, when I'm on the phone with them explaining this, they're saying to me, Tommy, that the lawyers are not going to let you talk to those people. And I'm like, I'm a lawyer. They're going to talk to me. Don't worry about it. I got this. And one of my professors was adamant that they pick another topic for me just in case the lawyers wouldn't let their people talk. Boy, did he know a lot more than I did at that time. So, of course, the lawyers wouldn't let anybody talk to me. And so I had to move to the second topic, which is he wanted me to apply crisis management, systems thinking to crisis management. And that started a 20-year love affair with systems thinking. And what I learned about systems thinking is most of us are taught to think in a linear way, timeline, right? When something happens, how many of you immediately say, well, let's build a timeline of what happened, right? Let's see what happened. That's what lawyers do. Lawyers, the first thing they're doing is they're building a timeline. Tell me the timeline of facts, right? So I can see where things went wrong. In systems thinking, it's a feedback loop, right? You got to look at the whole thing as a system so that you're looking for two things. There are two things happening in every system: structural conflicts and leverage points. They're flip sides of the same coin. Structural conflict will let you accelerate through, and a leverage point will let you accelerate through, and a structural conflict can grind the system to a halt. Now, what does that look like? Well, first of all, most of us don't realize that our family's a system. You're born into a system immediately, and you're actually born into two systems. You're born into a healthcare system, and you're born into a family system. And those things tell us stories about ourselves that aren't always true. Long before you ever got here, somebody started telling you who you were going to be before you ever showed up, and you bought into that story. And part of what systems allows us to do is to start teasing out the stories. I'll give you an example. How many people are the oldest in their family, oldest child? What story did being the oldest child teach you? You had to take care of everybody else, didn't you?
Be responsible.
Be responsible. And if somebody gets hurt, doesn't matter how they got hurt, you're going to be in trouble for it. How many people here are middle children? Yeah, what's the middle child story?
Don't make waves.
You're the piece, you got to stand in between everybody. Yeah, exactly. How many people here are babies? Aren't we special? Well, my siblings are like, you are so spoiled. I said, please stop. The three of you were so awful. Mom and Dad were exhausted by the time I came along. It wasn't that I'm special, it's that they were worn out. They didn't care whether I broke a rule or not. They were exhausted. How many people here are only children? Yep, what's the story of the only child? Oh, I don't know how to get along with others, blah, blah, blah. I know, Mallory, you're so tired of that, aren't you? You're tired of hearing that story. My son recently got engaged to his girlfriend, who's an only child. And when he told me he started dating her, and he told me she was an only child, I was like, oh, God, here we go. Because I bought into the story. She is one of the most beautiful women I ever met. I regret ever having a story about an only child. She is high social, just a delightful woman. And so I do regret, but that's what stories do from the system. They teach us things about ourselves that aren't true. So one of the things I wonder is, what is your job telling you? What is the story of your job that you're buying into that's not true for you? So one of the things about systems is start examining what stories they're telling you, because as we can filter away from those, we step more into our brilliance. Now, here's something else about systems. There's a formula for success that's a system. It's called P equals P minus I. Performance equals potential minus interference. I became fascinated by that, because your performance is dictated by the amount of potential you can tap into. Your potential is dictated by the amount of interference in your life. And guess what those stories do to us? Create interference that keeps us from tapping into the potential, which keeps us from accessing that brilliance that belongs to us. So I've spent the last 20 years looking for interference. And part of interference is using a hammer for everything, thinking it's a nail when it's not. Well, and all the other things I'm going to share with you today are all both structural conflicts and leverage points. If you don't know about these things, it's going to be a structural conflict that limits your progress in the system. And if you do know about these things, there'll be leverage points that accelerate through the system. Anybody got any questions so far? All right, let's talk about tool number 2. Brilliance is above the line. There's a great book. I've got it down here at the bottom. And by the way, this presentation will be available on our website after tomorrow, and I'll give you the link for that so that you can download it if you choose to. But this book, Above the Line, How to Create a Company Culture That Engages Employees, Delights Customers, and Delivers Results by Michael Henderson, talks about the fact that culture comes in two flavors. Not just culture either. Your behavior comes in two flavors. And the two flavors are either above the line or below the line. It's really that simple. And let me tell you, I've spent a lot of time below the line. And I'm not happy about it. I've forgiven myself for it. But this point in my life is about turning toward those things that are only above the line. How many people, and let's talk about this for a second. What do you think above the line looks like? And if you'll all stand up for me, what I'd like for you to do is stand up, because what we're going to do is we're gonna actually live these two things. What do you think below the line looks like from your body perspective? She's got ready. She does this, or 10, right? Do this for me, or that, right? Or this, exactly. Do that for me. Feel it. Do it. Tighten down. Lock down. Now let's do above the line. Shoulders back. Do you feel the difference?
Yeah.
Isn't that an amazing difference? This to this. This is the way, this is what brilliance looks like, above the line. Above the line. All right, thank you for doing that. And feeling that, embodying that. We're not talking about up here, we're talking about here. Above the line is open, curious, and committed to learning. Curious has become one of my favorite questions. Now I'm going to pick on my husband. He loves me dearly. I love him dearly. He's used to it. He's actually been getting me back lately for the 30 years of junk I've given him. But my husband doesn't think like I do. Well, that's a surprise, right? And I haven't always been nice about that he doesn't think like me. And I'll look at him and I'll go, really? Come on. And now I'll be like, I'm curious as to why you think that might work. What do you think that creates from him in a response, as opposed to
Above the line.
when I'm curious about something, it changes the way I look at it, and it changes the feel of how he receives it, right? And so brilliance knows above the line is important, and brilliance also knows that be curious, don't be closed about it. Be curious, don't be closed. There are significant aspects of above the line culture. There are significant aspects of below the line culture. Two of my favorites, above the line, is you have a sense of humor about everything. Yesterday, my husband and I just moved into a house. We moved out of our house of 22 years in February, moved to an apartment. We have a partially blind dog who didn't fare well in the apartment, so we rented a house while we're still looking for one. It's got a little backyard. Love the doggy dearly. Yesterday I said to my husband, so we got up early, we're going to pack, and I said, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put that bedding stuff in a bin. And then I go, ooh, I should probably put makeup on first because I don't want to scare anybody. And he goes, well, that's going to be difficult. Not to scare anybody, right? And I just started laughing. I was like, that's so funny. Touche. The moving games have begun. Keep your eye out. Right? Right? I made it a game. We had fun all day long. My favorite part was when the furniture he didn't know I bought was delivered. Right? And the thing is, he didn't get mad about it either. He kind of went like this, like, you know. But I told him, you know what you signed up for when you married me 30 years ago. So I'm your entertainment. Don't get mad about it. But so sense of humor is very important above the line. I could have really gotten out of shape about him saying it's going to be difficult not to scare anybody. I actually thought it was hilarious, right? So sense of humor, but below the line is what we call sense of rumor, right? When you're spreading rumors about people. When somebody comes to me to spread a rumor about somebody, what I say is, I think you're talking to the wrong person. I don't think I can do anything about that. Why don't you go to the person who can do something about that, right? So there's actually a language that goes along with being above the line as opposed to below the line. An above the line culture creates a positive and inspiring work environment. Here's what we know about above the line. It's thriving. Below the line is dying. And you want to be in a thriving organization. And you also should ask yourself, what's my dynamic in that? Am I below the line? Am I contributing to this culture being below the line? The key to improving profits is not continually asking executives, managers, employees to do more with less. It's about designing a culture where people are engaged, where they get to use their gifts, where they get to be their authentic and essential self. That's where we're going to make the most profits, when we do those things. The other thing about above the line and below the line behavior is we know that culture has far more impact on profits than anything else. It impacts strategy, because here's the thing. If I don't believe in you, am I going to carry that strategy out? No, I'm not. Business without an aligned strategy, aligned culture, is powerless to really achieve its goals. The way that we do that, golden nuggets. High staff turnover, lack of collaboration, increased absenteeism, poor quality output are just some of the symptoms of a below-the-line culture. Are you seeing any of those in your workplace? Here's what I tell people. If your employees know that you believe in them and that you're going to take care of them, they're going to give you 110%. People don't believe 110% exists, do they? It does, doesn't it? I'll go to the map for you because you are going to go to the map for me, right? In an increasingly competitive business environment like the one we find ourselves in, people of brilliance know that culture and above-the-line behavior makes a difference. How do we do that? How do you as a leader create that above-the-line culture? One of the most important things you can do is define your department's values. And then decide what is above the line for that and below the line for that. Everyone understands. We have everybody on the same page. Here's the other thing it does. It takes us out of a blame language. Karen, how could you do that? As opposed to, Karen, I thought we agreed on what was above the line and below the line, and this feels like it's below the line. What do you think? I'm curious as to whether you think this is below the line. When we shift our language from blame, it makes a whole different world for the people we're working with. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a culture of care and candor. That's what above the line looks like. A culture of care and candor. When we care about the people at work and can have the conversations with them that need to be had, it makes all the difference. Now, when I first learned about care and candor, the gentleman who taught us about it said, listen, with kindergarten teachers, you're going to have a lot more care than candor. With Navy SEALs, you're going to have a lot more candor than care. He says, not every culture is exactly the same. You have to figure out what's more important. Do you lead with care and have candor, or do you lead with candor and have care? Any questions so far? Tool 3. Brilliance leads from the right place. So, may I borrow you?
Sure.
And may I borrow you? Linda and
Jamie.
Jamie. Linda and Jamie.
You got this. Always scared.
All right, so here's what, this is again feeling this instead of thinking this. You two work together, and you're the leader, all right? And you're going to lead from right here, right? And you need to know your place. It's behind her. No. I like the way she's thinking already. Okay, should I pick 2 other people? No. Yeah. So how did that make you feel when you stood behind her? She's the leader. All right.
Wow.
Well, the fact that you know each other is kind of ruining my plan. That's okay. All right, what if you're standing side by side? You're doing this together.
That's
Feels better? Yeah, feels better? All right, you step in front of her.
That ain't gonna
Shut
work.
up! All right, thanks, ladies. But yeah, thank you for being volunteer. But you see how we feel when we think someone's in front of us? Here's what the proactive leadership model teaches us. All right? It's an important tool because top-down, one-dimensional leadership, I'm the boss, you're going to do what I say, isn't going to work anymore in today's rapidly changing environment. We have to change the way we perceive where we stand as leaders to each other. Proactive leadership, it's a deeply collaborative way of leading. So instead of someone being in front, what you do is, when you are the lead, first we have to start leading from within. Most of us don't appreciate that there has to be a certain space and thing happening here for us to participate in a coactive leadership model in a way that's powerful and effective. A lot of people might talk about this as a matrix organization, right? You might answer to 3 different people in the organization. One might be here, one might be in California. And so how do we empower ourselves when we're responding to people across the globe is we want to be in coactive leadership, which means we must decide where we stand and what we're going to do about it as we're standing there. So in this, whoops, where'd I go? What happens when people don't know how to operate PowerPoint? Right?
They have their assistant do it.
Really? That would be me, leader in front. My assistant would do it. Right? What we're talking about now is from a leader in front consciously making the choice to be the leader in front. Consciously making the choice to be the leader beside. Consciously making the choice that before I can go out and be the leader in any of these outside roles, I have to be the leader within. That means I need to be above the line regarding myself before I step out to be a leader with others. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. Did I go the right way? Yes. So with the leader within, you first have to have self-acceptance and self-authority. That means acceptance of who you are just as you are, and authority over yourself by being above the line, know what you value, know what your strengths are, know how to lead with those in the world. A lot of times we get sideways with ourselves when we don't know the things that we care deeply about and what we're best at. And then somebody asks us to do something and we get in the middle of it and it doesn't work out for us because we didn't know we should have said no. That's not for me. All right? So this is being responsible for the world of self, deeply connected to a sense of belonging. I belong here. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is. Even if we can't explicitly articulate it, we know what it is. I know the feeling of when I'm in that vein of gold, right? We also know that we matter. Everybody in this room matters. The universe loves to tell us a story of who you are is not enough and there's not enough. Okay? That story is a lie. Everybody in this room is worthy, deserves the best things life has to offer, and if anybody tells you otherwise, they're not telling you the truth. To be the leader in front, leader in front. The leader in front is not about, I'm in charge here, people, looking backwards. The leader in front is about connecting to those behind and setting direction. How many people have a leader in front of them who's a diminisher as opposed to a multiplier? Yeah. Exactly. The leader in front should be a multiplier, not a diminisher. Listen, I'm not in front of you because I'm better than you. I'm in front of you because I'm really strategic at setting direction and getting other people to follow. That's why I should be in front of you. We make the mistake of promoting people simply because they've been around long enough and it might be their turn to have this job. Now, it might be your turn to have this job, but you don't deserve it because you've been around. And if you have that job, make sure that you earn the trust of the people behind you by deeply connecting to them and setting a vision that gets them to buy in and take you in the direction you want to go. The leader behind. The leader behind isn't behind because they don't have the right skill set. They're behind because maybe this is your job as a cheerleader to champion the person in front of you. The leader behind is believing and championing in the people in front of them. I actually kind of like this place best. Because that's why I'm a really good cheerleader. You've got this. I'm right here. Ask me any question, but you're leading the way. Right? And it's about our deepest sense to serve. Right? And it's really about us supporting the vision of the leader in front of us. How many people here think they haven't played every one of these roles? I can tell you I've played them really bad, right? And I really would like to apologize to all those people in my life who are watching via Facebook Live right now for all the horrible things I've done to them. Love you! Leader beside. This person is 100% in synergy with the person next to them. When I saw this and thought about my marriage, it was a good thing my husband was out of town because I cried for 2 days and I really didn't want him to see me do that about how awful I'd been at being 100% partner with him. Sometimes you can't always treat people the way that you want to, but that's a last resort, right? It's a last resort. So how many people are you in partnership with where you're not giving them 100% synergy? And what would that look like if you did? Right? We're deeply committed here to serving the partnership. Deeply committed to serving the partnership. This last one is, well, leader, am I going in the right direction? Okay, for somebody who's educated, can't run PowerPoint today. All right, leader in the field. Leader in the field. Which way do we go? Leader in the field. There we go.
Yay.
When you're the leader in the field, this is not a nebulous field. This is the energetic field. This is the field of God's grace if you're Christian. This is the field of energy if you're spiritual or source or whatever metaphor you use. And for me, you're standing in God's grace, right? That's that energetic field that we stand in. It exists even though we can't see it or touch it, right? And if we are present in the moment, and just wait for the answer, if we can be patient enough, we'll get really good answers on how to be a leader in all the other places. Right? A quick centering practice I use when I'm teaching a leader how to be a leader in the field is simply deep breathing. I actually had to do it on the way over here because our house is filled with boxes, so I couldn't find my shoes. Am I wearing earrings? Yes, I did find my earrings apparently. And so on the way over here, I just said, okay, you need to center so that you are your best self when you go to deliver this presentation. And it's really simple. Breathe in, and say to yourself, I, and then out, am. And in your head, I'll say it for you. Breathe in, I, out, am, in, here, now. I am here now in this. In and out. I am here now in this. Breathe in, breathe out. And when I center myself that way, I remind myself to be in this moment. And when I'm in this moment, guess what? I'm with some fabulous, awesome women. Right? And that is all that matters. The fact that I almost killed the dog on Wednesday by throwing him out the car window, I'm not upset about that anymore. I'm not upset that there are 42 boxes in the kitchen. Because I'm here with you beautiful women, right? So leader in the field, there are certain techniques you can use to ground yourself in the moment so that you can come back to where you are and not worry about anything else. There's work in each dimension. There's very specific work that you're doing. If you're the leader within, it's about purpose and values. If you're the leader in front, it's about your deepest longing. It's about that golden vein and living in that brilliance in each moment. If you're the leader behind, who in this situation needs my belief and support? If it's the leader beside, who might be my partner in this situation? What alliance do I need to design so that we can give 100% and 100%? Leader in the field, what's the big picture? What am I trying to accomplish here? How do I be my best self? Okay. So as you go about your day, when you're tapping into your brilliance, here's what you have to ask yourself. From what dimension do I choose to address this challenge? Because if you ask yourself, because here, what do you think happens when you get out of place? You should be leading from the front, yet you're trying to be a partner. Sometimes the person has to be the leader and make the choice, don't they? Somebody has to execute, right? So you have to first ask, what's my right place here? Then, what's my purpose? And then how do I go about it? That's a tool for brilliance. That's a big tool for brilliance. Any questions about that? So my two children are 26 and 23, and they work for me off and on. They have their own lives, but occasionally I need their expertise. And when I asked my youngest to review this PowerPoint, he said, "You got to change the name of this slide. It's awful." Warren, no, it's not. He says, "People don't even know what polarities are." I said, "That's the point." So I didn't change the name. And here we are. Tool number 4, managing polarities. Here's what happens. And these are some of the best quotes about managing polarities. Some problems are so complex that you have to be highly intelligent and well-informed just to be undecided about them. The next one. We have each reached the end of problem solving as a mode of inquiry capable of inspiring, mobilizing, and sustaining human system change. So what is managing polarities? You seen this before? How many people first saw the polar bear? How many people first saw the seal? I think that's what it's supposed to be, the seal. Who's wrong?
Nobody.
How often are problems like this where we want to make somebody wrong? When all that's really happening is they're seeing something you're not. And that's what polarity management is about as opposed to problem solving. No one is right. No one is wrong. You have to stand in the benefits of both. And I love this example of polarity management because everybody needs to inhale and exhale, don't they? Is one wrong? Is one right? Don't they both have benefits? The biggest clash that we see with polarity management, and what polarity management is, typically when things are clashing in an organization or in your life, somebody's taken this position and you've taken this one, and you can't meet in the middle. Right? And I see this most with traditionalists and change agents. How many people have felt that clash? The traditionalists like the way things are. The change agents, we got to move forward or we're going to get left behind. And so they clash and can't meet in the middle. What polarity management is about is what are the best of each polarity and what is the worst of each polarity. And how do we stand in the best of both? Because if we can stand in the best of both, guess what happens? Brilliant things happen. Brilliant things happen. And that's what we're trying to get happen. So with polarity management, rather than, if you have a problem that you're not able to solve, I bet you're in the middle of a polarity management. And you can chart it out just like they did with the inhale, exhale. What's this one polarity? What's that one? What's the benefits? Benefits, downsides to each. And then you figure out with your team, how do you stand in the middle of those. And here's what happens is we go from planning to action to planning to action. How many people recognize that? Familiar with that? Right? From personal growth to acceptance of who we are to, well, I'm not enough again, so let me grow some more. From centralization to decentralization, from asking for compassion to demanding accountability, back to compassion, from capitalism to socialism to greed to entrepreneurship. How do you manage those whirling dervishes, right? Right? Because those are wicked problems. And there are no answers to wicked problems. If you're in the middle of a wicked problem right now, I invite you to consider that maybe it's a polarity to be managed and not a problem to be solved. The beautiful thing is the ability to distinguish between problems that have to be solved and polarities that have to be managed. Because if you don't have any milk in the refrigerator, is that a polarity management or a problem? It's a problem to be solved by going to the grocery store and getting some milk, right? All right. But if you have the ability to distinguish between those two, it's an essential leadership skill, and you are going to go places because you're going to be able to take advantage of both polarities. And those are the people who are brilliant, when they can take advantage of both polarities. Any questions about polarity management?
Very interesting.
Our last tool, the one thing. Anybody read this book by Gary Keller? So I took the book, The One Thing, and the book Essentialism, and I brought them together because of complexity and chaos. There's so much going on. Your brilliance lies in being able to figure out what's the one most important thing you must do here. What is the one thing that if I do it, everything else will fall into place? This came out of, so my family, if you haven't noticed, we're a little weird. Every New Year's Eve we go to dinner and you have to bring questions that you ask each other. And so we have these great New Year's Eve question dinners where we talk to each other about what we want out of next year, what we did this year. And one of the things that came out of that is, if you're sitting here next year, December 31 of 2019, and you've done this, you're going to be successful in your own life. What's the one thing that if you do it, you will be successful? And you can, and when we say one thing, we usually pick one personally, one professionally, maybe one financially or career-wise. You pick that one thing in these big dimensions of your life. Decide what success looks like that in that area. Define the 3 things that it will take for you to get there, and move only in that direction. The more you move only in that one direction, the more powerful you become. In The One Thing, Gary Keller talks about, he uses the domino effect as an example of this. And he said they started out with one regular-sized domino to see how much it could actually knock down. By the 9th domino, the strength and force was able to knock down, and I knew I was going to forget his name, the Denver Broncos quarterback who does those State Farm commercials. Peyton Manning. The ninth domino would be powerful enough to knock down someone as big and tall as strong as Peyton Manning. Knocking down one domino after another. Focusing on one thing, just the dominoes. What does that look like? I'll give you some examples. So this year I said to my children and my husband, my one thing professionally is if I'm recognized as a global transformation thought leader by the end of 2019, I will be successful. That means I have to do 3 things. 1, I have to finish the journey. I'm in the middle of my 3rd book, trying to get that done. That has to get done for me to feel like I've completed that part of my transformation building, tools building part. Spread the word. People need to know I'm here. People need to know that I'm a specialist in developing transformation tools. I have to increase my business. Those are the 3 things that I have to do to get to being the global transformation thought leader. That means every decision, every choice I make needs to do one of 3 things. If it doesn't help me finish the journey, it's a no. If it doesn't help spread the word, it's a no. It's why when Sharon asked me, I said yes. This is spreading the word so people get to see that I create these transformational tools that make your life easier, both personally and professionally. If it doesn't increase business, it's a no. Or if it doesn't have the capability of that, right? Because then I'm just focusing on those, that's the direction I'm going in. And I'm going to build this swell behind me that pushes me forward. Personally, my one thing, if I get to the end of 2019 and say to my family, I did the best I could to be the best person I can be. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to hear all about almost killing the dog on Wednesday this week as the reason why I'm not the best person I could possibly be. So I'm prepared for that. I'm going to be curious about that. My 3 things that will make me the best person I can be. Treat everyone the same with love, honor, and respect. Have amazing human experiences like this one. Grow. Continue to grow. And so my guiding question, does this next step, decision, action move me closer to being the best person I can be? If it's not built on love, honor, and respect, it's a no. Or have the capability for that. If it's not an amazing human experience, it's a no. If it doesn't stretch me, either intellectually, physically, emotionally, it's a no. Right? So find your one thing. Brilliance knows focus must be narrow. So those are our 5 tools. Think in systems, act above the line, lead from the right place, manage polarities, not problems, and focus on one thing. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Please.
What happened to the dog?
Oh. Funny story. So we have a black lab who loves to stick his head out the window. And the window was all the way down. I wasn't paying attention because I was trying to get to this rental house that we are renting. And I had a bunch of box on one side of the back seat, and he's on the other. And I slow down to go around the curve, and as I always do, I say, Mojo, hold on. So he puts his front paws down and sticks his butt up, and those boxes slammed into his butt and shut him out the window.
Oh, he really went.
And I it's like my children, I still always turn around and do this. So I went like this, and he looks at me, what's happening? As he goes out the window. Fortunately, it was early in the morning, so it was still wet, and we were in a neighborhood, so he hit the grass, it was wet and soft, on his shoulder and did a barrel roll. I slammed on brakes screaming, got out of the car and ran over to him, and he sits up and he looks at me like, what was that about? And my husband says, did he get back in the car? I said, not before asking me, lady, have you lost your mind? You want me to climb back in? Fortunately, through the grace of God, he's okay. He is okay. So yes, that's what I'm going to hear about when I say I was the best person I could possibly be on New Year's Eve. I'm going to hear about almost taking the dog out. So, any other questions? Yes,
How
ma'am.
often do you evaluate the choices that you want to make?
So actually, I have this going with one. I have 2 sets of children. That both the boys have girlfriends, so I have set 1 and set 2. Set 2, the youngest and his girlfriend. Every Friday, I send them an accountability email that asks them, because what you have to do is you have to break it down, right? This is what I want for the year. These are the 3 things, and then break it down by quarter, and then break it down by week. So I email them every week and say, grade yourself on how you progressed last week. Give yourself a 1 to 10. Did you do your best? And then once a quarter, we actually get together and spend time going through what their personal and professional goals are and how are we moving toward that. Because, well, it sounds like a lot. Honestly, when you're investing in yourself, it doesn't matter how much time it is. You should invest in yourself. Thank you for the question. Yes?
Sorry for the follow-up. So, you want to reinvest. One of my most favorite things is self-evaluation for end of the year and my job.
Right.
How do you, just not really my favorite.
Well, so one of the things we started doing is I sent everybody a big glass jar, yellow stickies and Sharpies, so that if something good happens to you, you write it on the yellow sticky and stick it in the jar, and at the end of the year we actually read those, so that helps us evaluate Because you forget, you don't remember day to day what happened. So we actually write that down on sticky notes and stick it in a jar and read those at the end of the year. So we can be remembered, we can remember, listen, we really did have a great year. Because it's very easy to get lost in the negativity. And so we do that to remind ourselves that we are actually brilliant. All of us are. Thank you so much.
Thank
What a
you.
privilege. I appreciate it.